Well, number one is the election, and it's in November, and it's, as we always say, but we think this time we're right. This will be the most important election in memory, so to speak. But having said that, even on a nonpartisan way, an organization can have an impact, and the impact that a nonpartisan organization can do, whether it's you know they can do candidate forums, they can do candidate interviews, they can do voter guides, and make both sides. We have a top two system in California.
Mm-hmm.
That means that in some cases it's not going to be the Democrat versus the Republican. It could be a Democrat versus a Democrat, or a Republican versus, because the top two primary winners go on to the general. That's for the Assembly and the state Assembly, state Senate, and also the House of Representatives. The point being that there's lots of opportunities for nonprofits to demand through voter guides, candidate interviews, et cetera, to get positions from candidates on the key issues. What will be your plan, Mr. or Miss Candidate, to improve Medicare in the near future? What will be your plan, Ms. or Miss Candidate, to restore, to increase the housing stock so that we can have fewer homeless people? I mean, those are just two questions that come to mind, and then get their answers and hold them accountable during their term.
Mm-hmm.
So even nonprofits have an opportunity, and you and I know how to do that stuff.
Right.
Okay? To have fair, balanced, nonprofit voter education. So that's the opportunity in the election. And then the other opportunity is that, and it is tragic, but there's a lot of fixing we got to do. The unemployment rate is terrible. There's 40 million Americans out of work. That's going to impact, and in a good percentage of those had employer-based insurance. So how do we fight to get them the coverage they need? And so here's the point. The direct action organizing model trains people on how to do those kinds of issues effectively. And so the institute that is about to get off the ground can have a key role in helping organizations protect themselves and improve their futures. Mm-hmm. And their communities, of course.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think I'll touch on just one of the aspects you talked about, which is for nonprofits or for other organizations that may look to bring us on to provide services. I think, again, this parallel process of understanding both the community organizing lens and perspective, and also the policy lens and perspective, those two things are very key. And a lot of the issues you pointed out, the increased in terms of unemployment, the projections in LA County are that there's going to be at least a 25% increase in homelessness post-pandemic, whenever that is. Senior issues, one which you're a champion of, Ernie, issues for students. We have students that are really, really going to face now an even higher debt to income ratio, because now, unfortunately, they're going into a world where there's simply no jobs, or the skill sets that they trained for the last 2, 3, 4 years, may not be accessible to them. So I think our role, the California Organizing Policy Institute's role, as you mentioned, is being that strong key ally, both for communities and constituents, and for the nonprofits and organizations that serve those constituents. I think those are going to be the hallmarks of what we do best and we have done best. And I think being involved in the idea that change is possible, I think, is also it's not being optimistic, it's not being pragmatic, it's being a realist that we do need to change. that despite whatever the situations are that we're facing, we're in constant change and motion. And I think that those are the hallmarks also that our agency can provide. And we have opportunities for individuals that are invested in these changes, but may not have a mechanism to engage, whether it might be that they feel that this is something that is beyond what they can do in terms of skill sets, or that this is something that they could only get from an academic institution. I think those are also two very strong hallmarks of us being accessible to constituents and communities, being accessible to organizations, nonprofits, and then providing really that language, as you mentioned in the beginning, the language of organizing, direct action organizing, the language of getting the win. Those are things that I think are the hallmarks of what we do and what make us distinct. So any final thoughts, Ernie? Anything
Well, I think we ought to spend a little bit of time, not that long, on what direct action organizing is, so that people understand what the product, in a way, that we want them to be part of.
Yeah.
And it's basically three principles. First is that in the process of organizing, okay, and by the way, let me define organizing. It's the task of getting people together to create an outcome. I mean, that's what organizing is about. Mm-hmm. But the first principle of direct action organizing is to win real improvements, real concrete improvements in people's lives. So it's not pie in the sky. You know, as I said earlier, it's that street light that without it, your neighborhood has more crime. Mm-hmm. You know, it's protecting Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Without it, senior poverty would go through the roof. Housing, protecting people. You know, there's been a big move lately because of the pandemic to protect people against unlawful or unfair evictions, and there's been some very good law passed. That didn't come out of nowhere. That came because people have been organizing and fighting for it for Absolutely. A while. The first principle is win real improvements in people's lives in concrete ways. The second is give people a sense of their own power. That has to do with having organizations in which people who are impacted by the issue are working and fighting on the issue, so that people are learning their own power, learning that they have power. It's, you know, the farm worker, Dolores Huerta brought this term into the farm worker movement many years ago. The great Dolores Huerta, who was the co-founder of the farm workers movement with Cesar Chavez, si se puede, which means yes, it can be done, versus no se puede, which meant no, it can't be done. Well, she brought si se puede, si se puede. So having people have a sense of their own power mm-hmm. means that you build people and they engage in the very issue that they're fighting for or fighting against. And the third principle is to alter the relations of power. So if you have if we're training, say, a group in San Francisco, the San Francisco Housing Alliance, I'm not even sure if there is. I'm sure there is one, but I'm pulling that out of a hat. We would train them on all the kind of techniques and strategy and how to plan strategy, and such that when they start to get into the rough and tumble of fighting for an issue, that City Hall knows they're there, mm-hmm. and that you have people. So the next time they do something, City Hall, a policy that impacts housing, they've altered the relations of power so that they have an ongoing impact with elected officials. So the three principles are win real improvements in people's lives, give people a sense of their own power, and alter the relations of power. Yep. If we've done that, with organizations that bring us in as trainers and as mobilizers, we've done our job, and to the great benefit of those who that have chosen to work with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to lead that. That's what, and there's lots of detail to it. And you do simulations and lecture and all that. But that's sort of the end product, that people get a sense of that.
Yeah. Thank you for reviewing that. That's, I think, is critical, is that for folks to understand is that our organization, based on those three principles, and as Ernie mentioned, it's beyond just the three principles. We do experiential work, we do simulations, we do didactic material. We also, again, we talk about policy and how policy frameworks feed into some of the bad outcomes that we see, and how beyond organizing, individuals can get involved, as you mentioned, is getting that win and reclaiming power. And, you know, the training aspect of it has to happen in not a vacuum. It has to happen in a way that's very tangible for people that are in communities, so that they can have a sense that this is really tangible change that I can see. It's not some pie in the sky, someone training me about those principles or those strategy or tactics, but that it's something that I can integrate and I can see real change in my life. So excellent.
And the other thing that's part of the title of what we're doing, remember, it says "and policy." You know, there's a lot of bad policy that's being written that we never see.
Yeah.
And what we will do as a training tool is help people learn how to read that policy and what to look for. You know, there's a wonderful book that I'm sure you've read. It's called The Power Broker by Robert Caro.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's wonderful in the sense that it tells the story of Robert Moses, who devastated hundreds of neighborhoods in New York City and around and on the outskirts of New York in order to tore them down and build redevelopment. The way he did it, when you learn the tools that he was able to figure out, you know, and the reading between the lines and the hidden this or that. So you've got to know policy,
yes,
to be effective, and you've got to know how to look for it. And so that feature, and I've been trained in a whole bunch of different ways. This is the first organization that I've seen that's going to match how to look at policy with how to win through organizing. That's a fantastic set of talents, and that's one of the most exciting parts of what we're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ernie, for saying that again. That's our board. We've assembled a great board, and we have varied skill sets, but we've selected a board that is very much the spirit of community activism, and also in terms of policy, as you mentioned, they both of those fit. You can't have one ingredient without the other. So,
and by the way, that's what, I'm currently a consultant. I'm sorry to make this longer, but with Social Security Works, and by the way, they've got both sides of it, just like I just talked about. They know this stuff in terms of the history and the policy history of Social Security, and they combine that with a fighting, organizing spirit, which is really amazing, really exciting. And they have taught me in the now almost 5 years that I've been there, that to connect those two ingredients, policy, sort of reading between the lines and knowing your policy, with tactics and strategy, is a winning formula. So this is very exciting to me, what we're doing.
Absolutely.
And I've seen it concretely at Social Security Works.
Yeah. Well, and also the academic, my academic background also, that's what we emphasize is when we have students, they want to not just understand the theory, but see how it's integrated. And many of them what's been effective for me as an educator has been connecting that piece for them, that policy and practice are so, so important. So, okay, well, those of you that have joined us, organizations, we're ready. We have a strong staff, and we have a strong board. We're ready to fight. We're ready to help organize and connect you to your constituents and help them to organize and train and do policy advocacy and analysis. And so we're very ready. We're open for business, as people are saying nowadays. So thank you, Ernie.
Thank you, sir. Good job. I enjoyed it. Thank you.